Hey there guys, welcome to the first Hunger Games inspired tutorial here on the channel following the time lapse on Wednesday. I'm going to be using two different colors in this tutorial. I'm going to be using the brown and white, and we're going to be making Hunger Games inspired earrings. So you're also going to need two small earring studs, which you can get at your local craft store most of the time. They have a blank space on the one side and then kind of the backing on the back, and you just slide them on just like this. They're real simple, and you can use them for making a variety of different earrings which you stick on the front part here. So let's get started. So since archery is a major theme of the Hunger Games series, I'm going to be making archery styled earrings in this video here. So to do that, we're going to cut out 4 strips of tape that are 2.5 inches long, and I have these two printed out pieces of paper here to kind of give you guys a guideline. I'm pretty terrible at freehanding things, so if you're really good at freehanding, you can probably, just freehand a bow, arrows, and a quiver without much trouble, but I'm not too good at it, so I printed out these two things as kind of a guideline. So I'm going to take my first 2 strips, I'm going to stick them together just like this, and this is going to serve as the background that we're going to be sticking these things onto eventually, and I'll show you that when we get to it. But I'm going to take my other 2 strips and I'm going to stick them together just like this. And 2.5 inches will work out pretty well if you know exactly how wide or how small you're going to make these. You don't want to make them too large because otherwise, you don't want giant things hanging from your ears. So these will be pretty good size right here. It's about 2.5 inches. So that'll work out perfectly. So now I'm going to put these two aside for now. I'm going to take my brown tape and I'm going to stick it down just like this. Cut a little bit of piece off, and then we're going to start tracing these on. And for this, I'm probably going to use a little bit of packaging tape just to keep these down on the paper and everything. That's certainly a long enough strip to have both of these on there. So I'm going to take my piece of packaging tape here and stick it directly down on top of these. If you want to go for different colors, you can certainly, substitute different colors here. If you want to go for like kind of the capital bow set, which is kind of like a silver or a chrome colored, you can get like the chrome tape, or you can go with just the plain gray tape as well. It'd be a pretty accurate representation here. So I'm going to use a piece of packaging tape to stick the whole thing down. Stick it like that. And I'm going to be cutting out the quiver, the bow, as well as probably one of the arrows. I'm going to be sticking that across the bow. Alright, so that's what it's going to look like after you've cut everything out. Now, the one arrow here didn't have any fletching on the back, so I just cut out a few little, triangles back and forth, and I'll add that to the back of the arrow there. So now what we're going to do is we're going to take our 2 strips back again, and we're going to stick these directly on top. I'll do the quiver first, and since we're sticking these on and then we're using the backing as a surface here, we can just kind of trim as much as we want to allow us to stick these on without any trouble at all. And since it's a nice white background, it's going to really highlight everything we stick on top of it, which will really help us out. So if you ever want to add anything to these pieces, you can certainly just cut it out separately and then just stick it right on. Like if you wanted to make these arrows I'm adding to the quiver a lot more, look a lot more like arrows, you could certainly just attach something else to the tape here. So one more piece, I'm going to stick that right in the center. And that'll be the quiver, and I'm going to take the same thing with the bow and kind of very carefully peel that up and stick it down on here. So there we have the bow stuck on. I'm going to kind of just drape the arrow over top of the bow here, make it look a little bit more stylish. So I'm going to put that right about there. So there's the arrow, and the trick will be actually making it straight because this is a very thin line of tape, so you're going to have to kind of, take it off and do that a few times. Then I'm going to add the fletching right to the back, right about there, and I can straighten that out a little bit and make it look a lot nicer. Alright, so now everything's stuck down. Now I'm going to start tracing out around it. And you want to kind of give it enough of a highlight that it really highlights what's on there, and that's the reason why we use a nice bright background, so it really highlights what's going to be dangling from your ears here. So I'm very carefully just going to highlight all around these. And while I'm doing that and showing you how to do it, I'm going to give you guys a short archery lesson. There are 3 different kinds of bows. The 3 main different kinds of bows are composite, recurve, and longbow. And to identify them, it's actually really simple. The composite is the only bow that uses a bunch of mechanical objects like pulleys and wheels. A recurve is actually what this kind of bow is here, and it's also the bow that's used by a lot of the characters in the Hunger Games movies so far. It's also called recurve because it curves back towards the front of the bow on the ends, and you can always tell recurve by that. And the third one is called a longbow, which is which was used by the Japanese and the Chinese mostly in the ancient world, and was also a choice bow of Robin Hood and his merry men. You can tell that by the bow just goes straight out like this instead of curving back. So I'm going to be cutting those out just like this, and kind of just highlighting all the way around everything that we've stuck down to the white piece in the beginning. So all the way around, and kind of, I'm going to do a little bit in the center too. Now at this point we're going to need our 2 earring studs, and I'm actually going to use all duct tape to attach these. You can also use a little dab of hot glue or something along those lines if you want to really make sure they never come off. But I'm going to use all duct tape, just to go for, for the purest sense of making everything out of duct tape. But of course you don't have to do it this way. I'm going to take a small piece of tape, just going to roll it in on itself so it's only the sticky side, like kind of a small cylinder there. And I'm going to stick this directly onto this piece here. So flatten that out so it looks just like that. Then I'm going to take the quiver first, and I'm going to stick that directly on top just like that. And now you see exactly why we use the white background as kind of like a highlighting factor, because you can definitely see that a lot better than if I just use, just all brown or something like that. So that works like this on here, and then you can just take it off just like this. And there we go. Now I'm going to stick the bow on there as well. So for the bow I have another small piece. I'm going to stick that directly on top, and this piece will be stuck directly just like this. Like I said, hot glue would definitely hold a lot better, and that's probably going to make sure that it never comes off. But if you definitely want to find a different way of doing it, you can definitely attach it in a variety of different ways to make sure that it stays on your ear and it never comes off as well. So you can definitely tell there's a bow and arrow and there's a quiver. You got one on one ear and then one on the other. So yeah, that's how to make some Hunger Games inspired earrings. There's a variety of different ways that you can make these, because if you pick up a package of these at your local craft store, you probably get a good 20 or 30 in the package, and you can tinker with a bunch of different methods of making things. There's a lot of different symbols and items in the Hunger Games series that you can make. Like a lot of the each book of course has its own corresponding logo, so you can stick all of those onto one of these, and since they're all circles, you can kind of work that into the part of the earring stud here. Or you could also kind of attach the first one and then kind of have like 3 circles all coming down with the 3 different logos of the books, which would be really cool. The only difference with that is if you're working with cutting something like that, you're going to be cutting really tiny, so I would suggest going as slow as possible, making sure your hobby knife blade is nice and sharp, and that you're able to cut through everything without too much trouble. So hopefully you guys liked the video. I'll catch you next time on the channel pretty soon for another tutorial, as well as of course the time lapse, which will be coming later today as well.